Welcome, one and all, to Funkatopia Live. I am your host, Mr. Christopher, and it is an honor to have somebody that I have followed for, good Lord, 40 years of my life. And it's such an honor to have him on the show, Mr. Jamie West-Oram. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Thanks, Mr. Christopher. It's nice to be on your show.
Oh, my gosh. It is.
Out there.
Yeah, for those that don't know who Jamie West-Oram is, most of you may be aware of him from the lead guitarist for the Fixx. And if you're an 80s baby, well, I was born in 68, but if you're an 80s baby and you listen to a lot of 80s music, you're probably familiar with Saved by Zero, When One Thing Leads to Another, Stand or Fall, just Red Skies at Night, all of them, Red Skies. All of those amazing songs, and this guy was behind the guitar of all of it. And when I found out that you had a brand new solo album that was coming out that is going to be coming in August of this year, I said I have to reach out because I've never had anybody from the Fixx on the show. I've tried, I've reached out, but I am very, very honored to have you on the show. And man, I tell you what, so where are you now?
I'm in Cornwall in England. My wife is upstairs. We're at a hotel, and we're visiting baby's son Marlon and his family. So he's my stepson, and they're a great bunch. You know, we're having a real laugh with them. It's great, and it's beautiful out here.
Oh, that's fantastic!
Right at the tail end of the far end of England, away from everybody else.
Yeah, I've never been overseas to England, but I'm like looking so forward to it at some point in time. And of course, you know, I would love to see the Fixx play on their home turf. And I'm not exactly sure where Cy Kernan's home turf is. Cy Kernan being the lead vocalist. For those who don't know,
we're never quite sure either, but sure it's California. The rest of us live over here in England.
Because I saw an interview with him, and he was speaking completely in French. And I was like,
yeah,
okay.
He's bilingual. He used to live in France.
Oh, well, fantastic. All right. So
French, actually.
So we are, we're here. I'm interviewing a hero of mine because, again, I've followed Jamie for 40 years of my life and the Fixx as well. It was one of the first concerts I saw by myself was the Fixx on their Reach the Beach tour, opening for the Police on their Synchronicity tour. And it was one of those, obviously that was such an iconic show because both of you were at the height of your career at that point. I mean, that was your biggest selling album. That was probably their biggest selling album as well. And I can't, what do you remember from those, from those years? I mean, was that like truly overwhelming? I mean, obviously the audience size changed quite drastically, but is there really specific memories that you remember from that tour?
Well, everything really exploded, and it was a lot thanks to the Police that things went so well for us. We started up opening up for the Flock of Seagulls, and we did a show with the Flock and the Police and Joan Jett, lots of others. And the Police invited us onto their tour, and everything, like I said, exploded, and it was a great year for us.
So it's like a specific memorable show that you were like, wow, this is like, this is definitely next level. I mean, Shuttered Room was a very, very successful album for the Fixx, but you know, once you hit Reach the Beach and One Thing Leads to Another is on constant rotation on the radio, you know, at what point do you say, like, was there a specific moment in that era where you're just like, okay, yeah, we've definitely stepped up to the next level here?
One of those shows, Oakland, California, where we played Lost Plains, and all these paper plates started flying through the air like flying saucers. I don't know if it's anything to do with the song, but it was very apt, and it was a surreal moment. 80,000 people out there.
And they all proactively brought paper plates to the show.
I don't know quite how it happened, but it was
oh my gosh. Well, our first run in actually happened quite a while ago, actually. And I'm actually going to show you a picture of you and I from many, many years ago. I think this was the Elemental tour, I think is where this was. God forbid the goatee. This was obviously this many years ago, this Elemental. So,
Yeah.
But before this, I had actually seen you. Well, you went onto a radio show in Atlanta, and it was on, and you may or may not recall this. You probably had a lot of crazy fans, I'm sure. But I called into the radio station, and this was during the release of Ink.
Yeah.
I called into the radio station and he said, what song do you want me to play? The DJ was like, what song do you want me to play off this since you're really familiar with the album? And I said, oh, you got to play Shut It Out. You have to play this song. It's an amazing song. And I was like fangirling out on this call. Like I couldn't breathe. I couldn't talk straight. It was like I was rambling, and he played it on air. And I was so excited that he played it on air because I really felt like that was one of the strong songs that could have easily been a single off of that album. And it was just like the whole night just kind of evolved from there, because Cy, and I believe you also had said, yeah, definitely come to the show. Let us know who you are. We'll get you backstage, blah, 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 blah. Went to the show. Sorry for this story, but went to the show. Obviously the show was amazing. And then afterwards, I tried to get backstage at the restaurant that was connected to the event venue.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have my name at the door. Nothing was going on. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, so disappointed that I'm so disappointed. And I'm just kind of standing there at the door. And I was like, well, I felt a little dejected. So I started to kind of turn and walk away. Then all of a sudden you come running around the corner and you said, Chris. And I was like, Regan knows my name. You grabbed me by the arm and you brought me backstage and you said, he's with me. And it was like the rest of the night was me hanging with you guys. And it was like easily probably one of the best nights of my life, just sitting there hanging at the bar and drinking with Adam and you guys. It was just an amazing night. So all that to say, one of my greatest fan moments for sure. But anyways, I'd love to hear the story of your family growing up and how you navigated into playing guitar. I mean, were the musicians in your family? Exactly how did that all work?
We were always a music loving family. I'm the youngest of four, and my older brother and sisters would buy the Beatles and the Stones and the Who and the Kinks and those British bands. And in fact, I remember my brother Stephen saying, I've heard this track where the singer stammers, I'm going to get it. And it was My Generation. And that really turned me into a guitar player, well, a would-be guitar player, because it was so exciting.
So what was one of the first bands that you were in? I guess before that, though, what kind of day jobs did you have before you actually settled into a band?
Well, music was really the only thing I wanted to do, but I had to do other things. I did roofing for a year, like a roofing assistant. I was the guy climbing up and down the ladder with a sack of tiles. So that was a
not an easy job.
good grounding experience. And I drove the van, often got lost. But anyway, luckily I managed to do something I could kind of just about do, play guitar. Very lucky to have done that, managed to do that for a living.
So what are some of the bands that you were in before Fixx?
I did quite a lot of small session work. I started out, I'm going to move to London. I'm going to meet as many people as possible. And whenever I'm asked to play anything, I'll do it. I'll help out on demos, this and this and this. So I and eventually started getting paid for it. The band I was with before the Fixx, I worked in Philip Rambo's backing band. And he's really good, he's originally from Canada. Kind of think of Van Morrison on steroids kind of thing. Like this is the new wave era, a very fast, energetic version of Van Morrison. He's kind of singer-songwriter who should have made it. And in the other two guys, Blair Cunningham and Dave Cochran, the bassist and drummer, they were from Memphis. We were working in England, and they were a couple of crazy guys, and nobody understood what they were saying because they had these broad Tennessee accents, and they were always up to no good, but brilliant players and very nice guys. So I did that. That was just prior to the Fixx.
So were you part, I guess I'm trying to remember what the band lineup was pre-Fixx when it was the Portraits. Were you in that version?
I joined at the point where they decided to, it was the band as is now, but with Charlie Barrett on bass at that time.
And I think Alfie was after that.
Yeah.
And then eventually Dan came into the mix after that.
Yeah. Dan arrived on just in time for Sign of Fire on Reach the Beach, and stayed nearly almost the whole time since then. Disappeared for a while to play sousaphone, then came back in, and that's the best lineup of the Fixx, really, with respect to the other guys who are also great.
Oh yeah, I mean, there was like a lot of different types of movements. I know Dan had also stepped out in the 2000s, and I think Tate came in, and so I mean, there's been some little iterations, but the fact that you are still a full unit with pretty much essentially the original members here 4 decades later, I mean, what do you think contributes to that? I mean, obviously there's a brotherhood among you, but what would you say to other bands, to kind of help to prolong some of that longevity if you're in a band scenario?
Well, if you all believe you've got something, you've got a good chemistry music wise, and you can get on okay enough to make it work, and not worry about, just when you're on the road, it's not always plain sailing and you just go, yeah, okay, it's not, it's kind of a job, and you just try and make sure you do the best show you possibly can, and then you feel good at the end of the evening because that was a great show, or it was that was a tricky one, but we nailed it, because we want to, and you've got to, so that's what keeps us together. It's the music.
Yeah, and I'm been kind of curious about some of the stuff that's going on. I know you guys have moved around with labels here and there, starting out with MCA, which is obviously now defunct, but there was some RCA, and your solo album's going to be in the Orchard and everything. Is there something, and I know this is kind of a little bit off base, but I'm curious about it. What's happened with the Fixx and Spotify? Because right now, if you go onto Spotify, it has every 5 seconds, Beautiful Friction and Ink, and that's it. So Reach the Beach is not on. None of the early albums are on there. Is there something going on that Fixx fans should know about, or is there a good place to go? I mean, obviously I have all the vinyl and CDs, but for those who want to kind of do a little bit of crate digging on your material, where's a good place for them to go, or what's going on with Spotify?
I can't give you any real detail on that. I think it's going to hopefully get resolved at some point. I can't really, I don't know all the details.
Well, I'm really not surprised, because I know that a lot of artists have had a lot of conflict with Spotify, just with, the amount of sharing, I guess just with the amount of revenue that it just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I totally understand that. You've played with so many different artists, and a lot of people don't know this about you. It's not just being a guitarist for the Fixx, but you've done a lot of work and sat in with a lot of different sessions. I know you've sat in with Brian Eno. I know you've sat in with Bob Geldof. There's just been a lot of different artists, and we'll talk about Tina Turner in a second, but is there like an artist that you've worked with that was just above and beyond, that you were just like, I cannot believe that I am in the same studio with this person right now?
Well, actually, you mentioned Brian Eno, and really that was one of those ones where through BB, they've known each other for a long, long time. They're still great friends. So I met Brian through BB, and knew him socially for a couple of years, and I kept thinking, I wonder when he's going to invite me to play on something. So I called him up one day and I said, look, I'd love to play on your, I know you're recording, I'd love to play on something, I'll do it for nothing, And he said, well, I've just finished, but thanks a lot. And then a few days later, he invited me along. I need some rhythm guitar on something. He was just around the corner. So, and I went, at last, I'm working with Brian. And it was great fun, as I thought it would be. Went home and he said, then he called me back, said, I really like what you did. I want to send me an invoice. I want to pay you. And I went, even better. I remember one session I did with Brian. It was a Depeche Mode track called I Feel You, like a remix. Wow. And I was playing, and I had one of these little Boss delay pedals where you can change the delay speed and the pitch changes while you do that. So I was playing guitar and Brian was playing my pedal.
He was like down on the floor playing with your pedal.
Literally that. It was such a laugh. And I like the way it turned out.
Wow.
So that was one of many, and I played on a few things that Brian was producing and his own stuff. And, I'd like to work with him again, but it was always great working with Rupert Hine, of course, because he was such a fun person to work with and a very nice person, and Steve Taylor as well, of course.
Yeah, you've worked with Steven, for quite a bit, because he's actually part of the production team on the last two Fixx albums, if I remember correctly, Beautiful Friction and Every 5 Seconds. But there was something in the way that Rupert Hine, the way that he produced your albums, created this. Well, let me just go ahead and say that, between you and Rupert Greenall, the two of you, who is the keyboardist, I'm trying to kind of make sure that anybody who's listening who doesn't know the individual members.
Yeah, there are two Ruperts.
The keyboardist, Rupert Greenall, and yourself really together create this ethereal, it just kind of sets like an environment. And it's just, everything is just it's like very otherworldly, the way the two of you work together. And Rupert Hine, producer, who passed away, he passed away just a few years ago, right?
Yeah, that's sadly, yeah.
Yeah, in 2020. And one of the things I noticed was that he really had a way of being able to capture that magic that happened with the band, because everybody brought their own little thing. Adam's drumming is always just so succinct and direct. He doesn't really need to do anything fancy. He just wants to accentuate what everybody else is doing. And then Cy is obviously Cy. But Rupert Hine really had a way of really crafting your sound to really kind of add these layers to it. Do you think that, what was some of the, I guess, watching Rupert Hine work, and also to that effect, Steven as well, watching them work, was there anything that you learned from watching them production wise and said, it's like kind of watching a master class? Is there anything that you can take away from those production sessions?
Well, I remember that just the good vibes from both Rupert and Steve, but Rupert Hine just had a very positive way about him generally, and a very relaxing person to work with, and very focused. And Steve Taylor, so fast, just incredible. We initially at the Farmyard studio, and he just knew the place inside out. And at and it was tape, it was 2-inch tape. So it could have been Rupert, it could have been him, could have been someone for the band, might suggest, we don't need those few bars there. Let's do it again. And Steve would just cut the tape in seconds. He'd just splice it before you knew what was happening, and it would be a perfect edit. Just examples like that, and knowing his way around all the outboard gear, and Rupert's it's hard to really explain Rupert Hines' role in all this, but just a fantastic presence, really, and a tactful and very kind of sensitive but funny way of explaining what he thought was right or wrong about something.
Yeah,
putting into words what he wanted.
Yeah, he was always very. I've just seen, it was a lot of consistency with the way that he produced. I mean, you could listen to, even on his own solo material and some of the random tracks on the Better Off Dead soundtrack and some of the things that he's touched, they all had that sound, just very, very similar to like your guitar. The way that you play has a very distinct sound. And I think that would be a really, really big takeaway. And I will say that with both Beautiful Friction and also Every 5 Seconds, the last two albums of the Fixx, I really kind of feel like you were able to kind of recapture some of that ambiance that Rupert was able to create. I think it's really, really close. And you mentioned Steven and the ability to be able to cut tape. For those who are not studio guys, back in the day, pre-digital, you physically had to cut the tape. And that is that is an art form in itself. So yeah, you could find somebody that could do it well and not screw it up.
Yeah.
It was definitely
doing it confidently and quickly. You think, fuck me, what's going on here? But then it's just done in seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
So we worked with Stephen Taylor for most of the album, and then 2 more songs came up, and we did those with Nick Jackson. Nick Jackson recorded those at his own studio on the outskirts of London.
Wow.
And Nick's great to work with as well. He's, again, just a very relaxing character and someone who works very fast and concentrates, but it's all very, it just rolls along nicely. That's the thing, is that it's organized and it's quick and it's easy and it's, and that's why I ended up working with Nick for my own album.
Well, I think that has got to be one of the characteristics of a producer that you have to have. You can't have somebody that just wants to quickly get things done. It's not somebody that's not going to be frazzled. Somebody that's going to take their time and pay attention to each one of the individual details. Because when you've got dozens of tracks that are all going at the same time and you got to figure out how to make them all work together, you absolutely have to have patience. That is a huge part of the production facility. I'm glad that you found that in him. I want to play a little bit of a clip here, and I want you to tell me about this day, specifically this video shoot. Hold on just a second. So
I remember that.
Rest in peace. She just passed away just recently. I guess we can talk about that for a second, but I also want to talk about going back in history and talking about this a little bit. Where were you when you heard that she had passed?
Oh, I must have been at home. I think at home in England, here in England. And when did I hear about it? I can't remember it, but I probably, I usually read The Guardian online, and it's probably one of the first things up there, It's all I can say is it's really sad, not unexpected, but very sad news all the same.
So when you kind of think about some of the memories that you have of playing with her, and you obviously are all throughout that video, along with Sia's too, But when you're watching that video and remembering the day of the shoot and everything, I mean, and of course, upon hearing of her passing, what are some of the most memorable things that you can remember from touring and just working with Tina?
Just in a nutshell, great to work with. As everyone will back me up on this, super professional, very nice, and also, well, there's no but, just very nice, funny, down to earth, always good. One of the things I remember, the guitar player and James Ralston and the guy that plays sax and keyboards, Tim, they would work out every day. They in the dressing room before, between the sound check and the show, lifting weights, really heavy weights, and they were doing some crazy exercise. They lean over a table, someone holds the legs down, and they do this. I can't really explain, but something very strenuous. And Tina walks in. She said, "Get out of the way," and she gets up on the table, and I think she did about double the number of those push-ups in half the time, kind of thing. Very physically strong.
Yeah, didn't she have her legs insured for like $1 million or something like that? It was something ridiculous. It was. I mean, that's not ridiculous nowadays, but in the '80s to have your legs insured for $1 million, it's a lot. It seems.
I don't know. It's a good idea. I don't know.
I think it would be worth it, obviously, for sure. Did you ever stay in touch with her at all after the touring and everything? This was obviously with Private Dancer, because you had been, again, your guitar work is just so noticeable on that particular track, and also on what was the other song was I Might Have Been Queen, I think.
Might Have Been Queen, which I got a writing credit for that, which is nice. And I played on a couple of tracks on the follow-up album. But I actually, not only that, I got invited to tour with her. So I did about 6 weeks around Europe with her band. And that was a great education for me, because you're not just backing up for some singer, you're in the backing band for Tina Turner.
Right.
That's pretty amazing. Especially the night when David Bowie got up and joined in as well.
Wow.
So,
you've worked with David Bowie before, haven't you?
But no, that was it actually. I worked with David Bowie, but that was the time I worked with David Bowie.
Well, that counts.
Hopefully, yeah. And he was incredible. Great to talk to him. Everyone will tell you, he was very nice person and very funny and very welcoming, kind of thing.
So exactly how did you actually get involved with Tina Turner in the first place?
That was through Rupert Hine. Rupert came to one of the Fixx rehearsals at Nomis in London, and we were routining one of the albums, and he sort of casually asked me, he said, "I'm going to be working with Tina Turner in a couple of weeks. Would you like to play some guitar on it?" And I had to think about that. No, I didn't. I said, "Yes, please," immediately.
Nice. That's fantastic.
So that's how that happened.
So when you're on tour, what is your go-to guitar for playing? I mean, do you prefer a different guitar when you're in the studio versus performing live? Obviously you play Strats, but I mean, is there a specific guitar you like more than the other that you gravitate towards more?
There's a John Suhr guitar that is really the go-to. It's a kind of replica of a Schecter that John put together I bought it from Rudy's in New York in the early 80s. But it I kind of wore it out. I played that so much, I pretty much wore it out. So he very kindly had a replica built, which I play a lot. It's a really solid guitar. It's very kind of clean but powerful. And I've also got a Fender 62 replica, which I like a lot. And I've recently, this guy, Dave Walsh in England, has built me a guitar to my specifications. That's Eternal Guitars. And that's a beautiful guitar. It's a really good one. So I'll probably be playing that one a lot. They're all great though.
Oh,
I've
man.
got guitars, and I'm married. My wife unusually encourages me to buy guitars, and she gives me guitars, and that's not supposed to happen. Wives normally stop their husbands buying guitars, but I've got the opposite thing.
Yeah. So normally when your birthday or Christmas comes around and you see that long box sitting under the tree, you're like, I know what that is.
Yeah, great.
Does she have a good eye for guitars? Is she pretty knowledgeable?
Actually, yeah, she is. She's not a guitar player, but she knows what sounds good.
Well, that's good. So what about pedals? What are your must-have pedals that you always continually take into account?
I'm chopping and changing all the time. Again, I'm always buying lots of pedals that I don't necessarily need, but I just want them. But the MXR Stereo Chorus is something I bought. I've got the one that I bought in 81 or 82. I've still got that and use it. But a friend of mine bought me the same thing as a gift, and that's in better condition. So I use that when I'm touring because I think it's more likely to last the whole tour than the other. So Boss pedals, I love those. I've got a Universal Audio, some of their stuff, and there's a delay pedal of theirs that I love the sound of. It's really rich.
Yeah, you use a lot of delay and a lot of some of that. Let me just say this, because obviously there's a lot of guitarists like Eddie Van Halen and Stevie Ray Vaughan and all those guys that have this their own distinct style, and when they start doing solos, it's really a very technical ontaking for them. Well, that's not even a word. But when you do your solos, there is so much going on that I don't think that, for those who are not familiar with your playing and are only tuning in because they tune in for everything Funkatopia, I'm going to give a couple examples of some of the solos that you've played over the years, and just like just a couple. But it is the way that you kind of create this vibe that is just unlike anything else that I've heard anybody do. Here's one example. This one is obviously from Phantom Living. It's just really, really short, but it's just insane to me how fantastic this sounds. That solo is just
pretty weird.
It's so simplified and so strange, but it just works so well in the arrangement of the song. I mean, that particular song is obviously about phantoms, and just it's kind of, it fits so perfectly. It's like, here's another one. This is one. We're gonna play one more from Outside, which I'm just gonna play a clip of. I'm not gonna play the whole one because you do quite an extensive one at the end of Outside. But this is another one from Reach the Beach. I cannot tell you how many times I have sat in a darkened room with headphones on, just vibing to that song and just some of your work. And I just have to know your thought process when you're kind of creating and conjuring has got to be the best word, these solos that just...
yeah, that's a pretty weird solo as well, isn't it? Well, I decided it's in D minor, that song. I decided to tune to drop D and just try and make a big sound, but with I wanted it to sound big, but very clean. It was a cheap guitar. It was an Ibanez Blazer, which I still have. Oh no, I don't have that one because that was with the whammy. Anyway, too much detail. But anyway,
It's okay.
I went in there, tuned it to drop D, and just had some fun. And I listened back and thought, that's fucking weird, but let's just go with it.
Well, I always try to figure out, was he under the influence when he wrote this? Because it just seems like you are in the moment. On all four, the first four albums, you are just in some type of zone that is just unparalleled. It's just so different, and again, it's just very, very otherworldly. I mean, is it really like a long? I mean, I know you kind of explained the process on that specific solo, but when you're approaching a solo for a song, or you know that you've got to kind of come up with one for a particular track, I mean, what's your thought process as far as, you know, just the process in general?
Well, usually I haven't really thought it through, and it's kind of noodling in a way. That's outside was easy because there are no chord changes. It's just D minor. I'm kind of better than I was with. I've learned a lot about modes and how different modes fit different chords within a key, and my fretboard knowledge is good, and I'm quite geeky in that way, and very interested in how scales and modes and chord structures work together. So I enjoy following chords and working with modes, if you know what they are. They're inversions of scales in essence, really. So I don't know that I was working in that sort of way in the early days, but that's how I do it now.
Yeah, because I didn't know this about you, but I heard that you actually do lectures on music theory now. What can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it kind of I did go to music college in Leeds a long time ago in the 70s, but and then I kind of decided I'm grateful for those years, and I learned a certain amount, but then punk happened, which was it was kind of the opposite.
Right, just need
like,
3 chords.
I went, of course, you really only need 2 or 3 chords and a lot of energy, and it's going to be great. And I still go along with that, but I've also I've revisited the theory side of things and become a total nerd in that way. And I somehow I did a master class at a college called the ACM, the Academy of Contemporary Music, and they then asked if I would do some lectures, and I thought, I'll try it, and I found I learnt a lot by doing that. Because if you have to explain music, you have to really clarify things in your head, and it's become almost an obsession of mine to get to the root and it's all about, I don't really know. It's like learning looking at the chromatic circle and the cycle of fifths, and it's a bit like wanting to break rules. But if you don't know what the rules are in the first place, it's harder to break them. But and there aren't any rules in music, but learning how it works and the emotional effect of specific notes within a chord, within a key, that sort of thing. And therefore, this flat, that's weird, and it's an ice machine in the background. What effect, say, an augmented fourth is going to have on the audience in this context, or if I play a flattened second, instead of a major second.
Right.
Kind
Now,
of like, yeah. Anyway, I could go on, but
oh, absolutely. And I love this stuff. But when you're listening to the radio and you're hearing songs on the radio, I tend to listen to the radio, and now there's like certain stations. Well, I see this certain song structures that kind of just get templated over and over and over again.
yeah.
Does it kind of really frustrate you when you kind of listen to the radio and you're like, God bless, can we like move on from this structure?
Oh yeah. I'm sure there's a lot. I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of great stuff, but there's also a lot of stuff that really is very lazy. I think lazy songwriting, very obvious predictable chord sequences and vocal lines. And a lot of them are hits, though. So who am I to criticize?
Yeah, I mean, well,
and you know what gets me? I don't want to be too negative, but the kind of male singers who sound like they're crying, I don't like it. I love some of the old soul and funk tunes where the male singer is in falsetto. But it's different from the kind of, do you know what I mean? The miserable sounding,
right.
self-pitying kind of male singers.
And speaking about falsetto, I don't know if you know this, but I was reading a biography from Morris Day, who sings with The Time, Prince's offshoot.
Yeah.
And the book is called On Time, A Princely Life in Funk. And I actually have a picture of the cover of this biography.
Yeah.
And as I was reading this, he talks about how Prince was really into the Fixx, was really into you guys and other new wave acts too. He was really close with Gary Newman and Kate Bush and all that. But were you even aware that Prince was vibing on the Fixx at all?
Not at all. No. That's amazing.
As I'm reading this biography, all of a sudden my worlds collided, because I'm like, I am a huge Fixx fan and obviously a huge Prince fan. So I'm sitting here reading this biography, then all of a sudden the worlds collided in this biography. I was like, what is happening? Have you ever crossed paths with Prince at all? Or, I mean,
No, I never did. No.
And it's just unbelievable to me. You were just talking about falsetto, and that obviously, thought about
That's
that.
okay. That's okay. The way he did it, that's cool. But I don't want to name names, but some of the British singers, I don't know. Anyway, but it's okay when Prince did it, and when Curtis Mayfield sang those in a kind of high falsetto sound. I don't know. It's just the kind of conviction behind it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to be able to do it masterfully, or just don't do it. Just don't do it. But when you're teaching, and this is this last question that I'm going to talk about your brand new album that's coming out in August. But when you're teaching and you see these younger kids that are aspiring musicians, I mean, is there like one piece of advice you find yourself giving them on a regular basis, like something that you consistently talk about or that you pass on?
I always encourage them to experiment and don't take the easy way out. Don't take the safe option. Just take a risk. I'd say that works really well. But why not just experiment a bit more with the rhythms and try a different chord here, or don't change chord there. Leave the chord going and change the bass line. I give them these weird musical experiments to try. Yeah.
That's cool. That's really awesome. So I want to talk about it here because I'm really obviously excited about it, because when I heard about it, I was just beside myself. But you have a it's actually the graphic that's behind us right now. You have a brand new album coming out in August called Skeleton Key. I can't remember the specific date in August.
No, I can't. I should really. I think it might be the 18th, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle of the month, but again, produced by Nick. So what Here's the questions I have on this. What kind of sounds can we really expect on this album production wise? I mean, for Fixx fans, let's just say, because first off, you've never done a solo album,
That's right.
so my biggest question to you is like, why are you just now doing this 4 decades into your career? What changed? You were like, you know what, I need to do this now.
I'll tell you, when I recorded most of it, it wasn't that recent. It was in the years 20 and 21, and we all know what was happening.
Yeah, right.
Pandemic. And how nobody could go anywhere, no one could mix, that sort of thing. So I got on with, okay, I'm just gonna record at home. So I put these tunes together, recorded it. Everything you hear, Nick recorded the live drums, which were done at the end. I recorded everything else and I played MIDI drums as a guide. And that's how compared to most people, I had a very easy time because I had something to do. And so there are 4 songs with me attempting to sing, and they are very much kind of topical to that time, but hopefully they're still relevant now.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear it because I have no idea what to expect. I mean, even when Cy Curnin, lead singer for the Fixx, when he does a solo album, you kind of get an idea of, you kind of have an idea of what it's going to sound like, because it's just, Cy has a very, very distinct sound. But with you, nobody knows what this is going to be like. I mean, I'm going to play a brief clip of Knuckle Down here, which is the first single off of this. But if we're looking at the overall album production wise, and again, for Fixx fans, if you had to compare the production of it with like a past Fixx album, because every single album kind of has its own, sound, like raw like ink, or really ethereal. I keep going back to that word of phantoms. What would you compare it to production wise to like a past Fixx album? What vibe?
The vibe, funny enough, our Rupert from the band happened to show up. He was visiting Nick, and he didn't even know that I'd be there. We were mixing. I was mixing with Nick, and he came to visit Nick, and he sat in on it, and I think he quite liked it, and he went, "This is different. It's very psychedelic." So it's kind of, I know what he means. There's something psychedelic maybe about it. And I wanted it to have I like music when it takes you somewhere new.
Right.
So there are some quite strange chord changes, maybe quite jarring. Not on all of them, but on some of the tracks, there's some quite jarring chord changes, which is what I wanted. Some of it, like Knuckle Down, is quite hard funk kind of thing. Others, there's some quite very ambient stuff. There's some this and that, but there's lots of experimentation going on.
I'm so excited to hear it. Let's actually listen to a little bit of a clip of Knuckle Down. This is a real short clip, but to give people an idea of what that sounds like from the funk side of things. So that is a little clip of Knuckle Down, which, again, I was just surprised when I heard it. I was like, I don't think I've ever heard anything like that from you. So I'm really excited. I don't know if there's any other tracks that are going to be very similar to that, but that's really, really cool. And I know that Fixx fans are excited too to hear what's coming from you. Tell me about this album cover for the single Knuckle Down.
The fist, that was my mate, Gus Campbell, who actually I do music with him. He's one of these people that is good at lots of things. and at the last minute, I realized I needed an image for the digital single. Just come up with something, Gus, quickly. So, and he sent me that, and I went, okay, that's great. Can we get permission to use that? I thought he'd found it somewhere, and he said, no, I just use a scanner. You know, these copier scanner things. That's my fist landing on the scanner. So that's that one. The album cover was done by my son Jack.
Oh, that is very, very cool. This is actually
a crude version of that, and it wasn't the curly fish. It was like a just very primitive cartoon fish with a key as a tail. So Jack did that.
That's very cool. How old is Jack now?
I think he's 36. He's 36. And then he got the other way around.
Yeah, because you and your wife have been married for almost 40 years now. How long have you been married? Somewhere close to that.
We've been together for 38 years.
Oh, congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, and this album cover is very, very cool because I see a lot of I've seen a lot of album covers. Obviously, we get a lot of music submitted to us, and some of these album covers are just cringe-worthy. That's the only word I can think of. And this is a very, very cool, very, very cool album cover. And if you look closely on this Knuckle Down single cover, if you look closely at the top finger, that fish is actually in that very top finger, which is really kind of cool. It's just, it's kind of just hidden in there. I think that was very, very slick.
Yeah, well, I have to give Gus credit because he's he likes the image that Jack came up with, so he somehow dragged it into the knuckle thing.
Well, that is very awesome. So, from what I understand, you are playing all or a majority of the instruments here. I've never seen you play anything other than guitar. I think I've seen you with a bass in your hand maybe one time.
Yeah.
So that decision.
Some of the tracks you're going to think you can hear keyboards, but it's actually guitar. I don't think I've played anything other than guitars and bass and voice. Tom Ashcroft played live drums at the last minute. I wrote down I notated all the drum parts. Tom can sight read. He did all 10 tracks in 2 days. He just, put the music in front of him. He read it and got most of it in a couple of takes.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, is he the only other player on this album besides yourself?
Bibi, my wife, does some French whispering, I'd like to call it, which is what it is on one of the tracks.
Wow, very cool.
It's a song called Collusion Blues, and that's all I'm going to say. And she just did some of the backing singing on that one.
And she'll get songwriting credits, of course.
I should have thought of that, but
oh, she'll get the benefit of it anyways, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it sounds great. The French whispering, listen out for that on Collusion Blues.
So are you going to possibly tour to support this album? Is that a thought?
No plans to do that, no.
Because, I mean, one of the reasons why I ask is obviously I see that the Fixx on the site is going on tour again starting in November, and I'm very excited that you're actually coming driving distance from where I'm at, about an hour away in Athens, Georgia, very close to my birthday in November. So I'm really looking forward to that. Is it just to go out and see fans again, or is there anything specific that you're touring to support with the Fixx? And the second part of that question is, would it possibly be out of the norm or out of the world of possibility that maybe some of these solo tracks show up on that tour?
I think I'd love to say maybe, but actually I think there's zero chance of that happening.
Why? It seems like such a great idea. I'm sure all the fans would love to see that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's really my place to.
I know, but.
Well, you got me thinking now anyway. I don't know.
Because it seems like I've seen Cy do some solo stuff on the tour before. Did I not? I don't know.
Don't think so.
Maybe I just think it would be a great idea. Sprinkle in some Asai solo stuff, sprinkle in a couple of tracks from your solo album, and I don't think the fans would complain whatsoever. Not at all, for sure.
Okay, you got me thinking now.
I'll throw it out there. Just
one thing, the exciting thing that's happening is that we're going to be playing in London. So we're playing in our own country for the first time in about 20 years. But that's in December, 14th of December at the garage, however you want to call it.
Right. So yeah, I saw that was closing out the tour, which I was just like, well, because everything that you're doing, I think you had some shows in Texas. You're going all up and down the East Coast. Yeah. Not doing anything California wise. Maybe that might change somewhere in there, but for now, I'm just excited that you guys are even close. But all that being said, Jamie West-Oram, it is an absolute delight and honor, as I've said before multiple times here, to have you on Funkatopia. I'm one of my all-time favorite bands. My vinyl collection of the Fixx is like huge because I think I got every single 12-inch that I could and random import that I could find. I have a very, very extensive Fixx collection, but I cannot wait to see you guys in November. I will absolutely let you know that I'm there for sure. You're playing at the Georgia Theater in Athens in November. But
great stuff. Yeah, come and heckle.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've got to get some backstage pass to be able to hang with you guys and whatnot. But Jamie, thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to this brand new solo album, your first solo album, Skeleton Key, that's coming out in the middle of August. Everybody just kind of keep an eye on that. And of course, for you guys that don't know the Fixx very well, please keep an eye on Spotify. I'm sure all that stuff will work out and their music will come back. I'm looking forward to that as well, because it's always good to have like a little mix going on.
Sure. Okay.
Well, say hello to BB for me, and
will do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for listening. Cheers.
Cheers. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.